The Symbolism of Poppies. A poppy is a flowering plant in the subfamily Papaveroideae of the family Papaveroideae, and there are a lot of different types, genera. Papaveroideae, the common red field or corn poppy. Papaver somniferum, the opium poppy, which grows wild in eastern and southern Asia and southeastern Europe. Papaver orientale, the oriental poppy, native to the Caucasus, northeastern Turkey and northern Iran. The artist Georgia O'Keeffe was particularly fond of painting these, principally because symbolically they have a Maltese cross centre. See the video of the cross and mandala. Papaver nudicoli, the Iceland poppy, native to subpolar regions of Asia and North America and the mountains of Central Asia, as well as temperate China, but not Iceland. Papaver cambricum. Synonym: Mechanopsis cambrica, or the Welsh poppy. Has yellow to orange flowers and is a native of damp, rocky sites in upland areas of Western Europe from the British Isles to the Iberian Peninsula. There are even plants in the poppy family whose common name is poppy, but whose biological name is something else. Escolza californica, the Californian poppy, is yellow. Mechanopsis betonicifolia, the Himalayan blue poppy. Argomona, the prickly poppy. Dioscorides used it to treat cataracts. As such, if we use this classification, there is no common symbolism. But if we home in on those that are labelled Papaver, we start to see some very interesting symbolism emerging, particularly the red field or corn poppy and the opium poppy. Bees use poppies as a pollen source. See our video on bee symbolism. A symbol of remembrance. Poppies are used as a commemorative symbol in the UK, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Malta and Canada, etc. Red poppies are worn to commemorate soldiers who have died in times of war. The tradition of wearing poppies began during World War I, 1914 to 18. The fighting took place in Western Europe, and the countryside was blasted and bombed, churned up by tanks and ravaged by fire. Previously beautiful landscapes turned to mud, bleak and barren scenes where little or nothing could grow. But there was a notable and striking exception to the bleakness: the bright red Flanders poppies. These resilient flowers flourished in the middle of the chaos and destruction, growing in the thousands upon thousands. Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae, a Canadian doctor, lost a friend in Ypres during the 1914-18 war, and in the spring of 1915 was moved by the sight of these poppies to write this poem. In Flanders Fields, John McCrae, May 1915. In Flanders fields the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from failing hands, we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us, who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. The Royal British Legion, formed in 1921, was approached by a French woman, Anna Charin, who suggested that money from the sale of poppies could be used to help veterans, especially the disabled. So in the same year, 9 million poppies were ordered, and all were sold. The money is still used for housing, jobs, a pension and rehabilitation. For example, Earl Haig was the founder of the Royal British Legion, and Earl Haig's wife Dorothy established the Lady Haig Poppy Factory in Edinburgh in 1926 to produce poppies exclusively for Scotland. Today, over 5 million Scottish poppies are still made by hand by disabled ex-servicemen at her poppy factory. Since that time, the 11th of November is reserved as a day of respect for all those who have died in wars. A 2-minute silence is observed on Armistice Day. At the 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month, we will remember them. These days, volunteers in the UK distribute the 40 million plus poppies, 1 poppy per soldier killed. The Royal British Legion also organise a field of remembrance in which crosses with dedications and personal tributes made by members of the public throughout the UK are planted in a specially dedicated field. The RBL start receiving tributes in September, with the fields opening in October and November. In consequence, the Royal British Legion has become a national champion of remembrance. Even if the war was unjust, the men who died were just ordinary people, tied up in the power struggles of others, meaning it is even more important that the sacrifice of those who served and died is never forgotten. The opium poppy. Papaver somniferum was in use Western and Central Europe as far back as 6000 BC. The Sumerians used it, and poppies and opium made their way around the world along the Silk Road. It was used in ancient Egypt. Papaver somniferum is the source of the narcotic drug opium. Although hybrids, some of which have been genetically engineered, are commercially grown in order to extract their medicinal alkaloids, morphine, heroin and codeine for example, it was not used in the times of the mysteries as an analgesic or narcotic. At the time of the mysteries, other plants were used for temporary pain relief, for example tobacco, nicotine, whilst plants were used to treat the cause of the illness. As such, no one became addicted or dependent on opium. But the opium poppy was very widely used in all the mysteries that used sexual techniques to achieve enlightenment, and to help those in training build up energy stores, as opposed to dissipating that energy in an unwanted ejaculation. And yes, you did hear me right, because in many of the mysteries, the worst affliction any man could have is premature ejaculation. Or any ejaculation for that matter. As sperm retention was key to the process of achieving enlightenment, tantric sex. And now a very simple explanation. Sarah Regan. Many believe sexual energy can be harnessed and transformed. Just as sex can physically bring about new life, channeling that energy can bring you new life in a spiritual sense. In other words, this is tantric sex, which is also all about sexual energy and sacred sexuality. Tantra is a type of yoga which helps you to make deeper connection and understanding with yourself. Sarah Regan. Edging, for example, is a popular practice for men in Tantra, and just like in Tantra, sexual transmutation doesn't always have to involve a partner. Tantric masturbation. And the drug of choice to help in this process, when someone was learning, was opium. Not genetically engineered, not manufactured as pills and deadly potions, not laudanum, but opium. Wikipedia. Since a partial cause of the refractory period is the inhibition of dopamine by an orgasm-induced secretion of prolactin, such potent dopamine receptor agonists as cabergoline may help achieve multiple orgasms as well as the retention of sexual arousal for longer periods of time. All the opium wars, the Golden Triangle, the opioid crisis, the smuggling, the deaths, all could have been avoided if our truly stupid Western ancestors had used opium correctly and cured illness, as opposed to masking the symptoms and never addressing the cause. A symbol of enlightenment, the poppy doll. Our video on virgins and high priestesses has a description of a very accomplished set of women who taught and shepherded men on the path to enlightenment. After all, we all know that old King Cole was a merry old soul, and a merry old soul was he. And he called for his pipe, and he called for his bowl, and he called for his fiddlers 3. It is a little over the top to need 3 fiddlers. 2 would have been ample, but I now think you can grasp what pipes and bowls are. All those who had been taught by the temple virgins, once they got to a reasonably old age, were often allowed to have a child. Louis Jacoliot, Occult Science in India. The Brahmatma had hardly been elected when, notwithstanding his advanced age of 80 years, in order that his election might be held valid, he had to furnish evidence of his virile power in connection with one of the virgins of the pagoda, who was given him as a bride. If a male child sprang from this union, he was placed in a wicker basket and turned adrift upon the river to float with the current. If perchance he was washed ashore, he was carried to the temple, where he was at once, and by virtue of that very fact, regarded as having been initiated into the 3rd degree. From his earliest childhood, all the secret mantrams or formulas of evocation were made known to him. This is from a Shaivistic story, but of course it is very similar to the story of Moses' discovery. There are even ancient Near Eastern mythological accounts that are similar. The Sargon of Akkad's Akkadian account of his own origins runs, "My mother, the high priestess, conceived. In secret she bore me. She set me in a basket of rushes. With bitumen she sealed my lid. She cast me into the river which rose over me." But however we try to work out which myth came first, the common theme is that either a high priestess conceives via a venerable old guru, or maybe an ordinary mother conceives, but the baby is brought up via the high priestess, and he assumes that she is his mother. And we celebrate the existence of these women who taught all these techniques and methods of achieving enlightenment with the corn dolly and the poppy doll.